4-2. What happens if he hits? If a zombie, which this is, we say, pull that down to 3-player instead of I didn't get it.
G'day all, JP, Top Deck Commander, back this month with Rocco Street Chef. Rocco has a lot going on. It's less a street chef, more a master chef. Beginning of my end step, everybody, myself included, exile a card. And until the beginning of your next end step, you can play that card. No one else can play your card, yeah? We're not stealing cards or anything like that. If one of my opponents plays one of those cards, I get to create a food token and put a +1/+1 counter on another creature. So it's kind of a bit group huggy. I'm giving you cards, but they're giving me a reach around basically and making it a little bit better for me. Lots of ways to go down this path. You could be pinging them for playing cards from exile, or pinging your. Whenever I play cards from exile, I could be pinging them. I've got a card in my deck that does that. Got another card in my deck that pings them every time an artifact comes onto the battlefield. So little drain effects. I'm mainly focusing on this deck on, well, actually 4 different ways to win. Like I said, it's Master Chef in this deck. It's no Street Chef. It's got everything going on. So I'm going to go life gain. I've got creatures that'll get really big as I gain life. Creatures that put +1/+1 counters, Lathiel and Nykthos Paragon, on creatures as I gain life. I got a nice piece of cheese in there to finish the whole thing off with Mael's Aria, one of those instant win cards, you know. If I get a creature with 20 or more life, I win the game. And I've also got a combo where I turn all my artifacts into creatures. 4/4 creatures to be precise. So a lot going on with the deck. Not sure that I should be going down so many different paths. You know, basic Commander deck building says stick to a plan. But I'm really liking this deck. It got the daylights pounded out of it last time I played it. My play group was, well, clearly very worried about it. It always means it's a good deck when they all suddenly start holding on to their support animals and bursting into tears that I've got a commander. And yeah, it was doing really well. I was doing really well, swung in for about 10 tokens, 4/4 tokens at one stage, and then they all went, okay, that's enough, and knocked me out the game. But anyway, let's get straight into it. Rocco, Street Chef. First up, as usual, just the ramp, and it's pretty much the normal package. Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, a Rampant Growth. Follow that with a Paradise Druid. I've got a Knight of the White Orchid and a Claim Jumper. This is that new card from Thunder Junction. Both of these can look for plains cards, not basics. So they're obviously there to get my Triome. Oracle of Moldiah. Extra land, look at the top card. And because I am exiling cards, not just with my commander, but with other cards, this can get rid of some lands before I exile, so I'm actually exiling quality cards to cast from exile. Sky Shroud Claim, once again that says forest, so I can get my triomes. And a Tireless Provisioner. This deck is all about tokens, so Tireless Provisioner gives me food or a treasure. Eleanor Gardner, Jesus, just sounds like Eleanor Rigby, doesn't it? The Beatles song. Every time I say that, I just think of that song. Beginning my end step, if I've sacked a food, I search the library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield. There's only about 11 basic land cards in this deck, but that's worth it. And finally, Mirari's Wake, because I've got green and white and because it's great. Simple as, really. Card draw. Inspired Tinkering. Love this card. Exiles 3 cards from my library. I create 3 treasure tokens, so effectively this is only costing 2 to cast. Plus, you don't have to cast those spells that you've exiled until the end of your next turn. That gives you time. That is an auto include in any red deck, that one. Escape to the Wilds, bit expensive, 5. But exile 5 cards and I may play those until the end of my next turn. And I may play an additional land. That all helps. And Ignite the Future. exile the top 3 cards. Until the end of my next turn, I may cast them. I do have a Hedron Detonator and a Quintorius Canned. Also, they'll turn up in the cheese section, but they ping people every time I create a token, one of them, and the other one is every time I sack a token, something like that. So, no, every time I cast something from exile, does 2 damage. So that's why I've got some exile cards here. It's just about extra synergies. Next card draws. Inspiring Call. Draw a card for each creature with a +1/+1 counter on it. And more importantly, it's an instant and creatures gain indestructible. So things are looking a bit dodgy on the board. Keep this up my sleeve. I can at least protect my creatures. Wild Wasteland. Here's another auto include in red decks. Skip my draw step, but at the beginning of my upkeep, I exile the top 2 cards of my library, and I may play those cards this turn. Once again, that's tying back into that Oracle of Moldiah. And this exiles 2. I then turn the top card of my library over. If that's a land, I'll play that to get rid of it and let the one that the Wild Wasteland turns over go into exile. Just choose through my deck a bit better. Gets rid of wasted draws. And Court of Grace. Enters the battlefield, I become the monarch, and at the beginning of my upkeep, I create a 1/1 spirit creature token with flying. If I'm the monarch, it's a 4/4. Once again, this is a token deck. I do have token doublers in there, so this will all work. I've got 3 tutors. I love this first one, Shared Summons. It's an instant, and it's 5 to cast, and you think, wow, 5's a lot. But it does get 2 creature cards with different names. Surprise, surprise, that's going to work in a commander deck. And put them into your hand. And it's an instant. So that is fabulous. If you're holding up your mana for that Inspiring Call or something like that, nobody's actually wiped out the board. Play this, go grab 2 creatures. And that ends up being 2.5 per creature, that's good tutor numbers. That's, demonic tutor kind of numbers, isn't it? Next is Moonblessed Cleric, 3 to cast. I search my library for an enchantment, put it on the top of my library. I like this card too. I'm in that idyllic tutor range where, that sorcery, pay 3, look for an enchantment. So this is same price and I get a body. So I think that's just a bit of value there. And Rocco Cabaretti Caterer. For red, green, white, +X, I may search my library for a creature card with mana value X and put it onto the battlefield. That's important words. Onto the battlefield, then shuffle. So that's just a great way of finding exactly what I want and getting it into play straight away. On to interaction. 2 creature killers, Path to Exile, Swords to Plowshares, and Artifact Enchantment Killer, Heliod's Intervention. Do like this card. That's literally a board wipe for artifacts or enchantments. If you've got enough mana, obviously. But also, I can gain twice X life. This deck is about life gain. I've got those cards that benefit from life gain. Why not? It's an auto-include. The next 3 pieces of removal, Generous Gift, Beast Within, and Minimus Containment. So they're all 3 to cast, and they're all about destroying permanents or turning a permanent into a treasure. I could actually do that to one of my own tokens, really, if I needed a token, a treasure token. That'd work. Something weird. Who knows? 1 board wipe only, Damning Verdict. Love this card. When I first bought this card, I bought one for an Atraxa deck, and I went, oh, that's a good card. I bought like 5 of them, 4 or 5 of them at about $3 each. And they're 20 odd now. Yes, finally I'm making money out of Magic. That's about it, really. Everything else has gone down in value. And I've got a bit of protection going on here. Dauntless Escort. I can sack it. Creatures I control are indestructible. Kudzil. Malamute Exemplar. Opponents can't cast spells during my turn. And of course, I can also draw a card with that one. That's handy. Loxodon Hierarch. Comes into play, I gain 4 life. This is a life gain deck. Why not? And I can sack it to regenerate each creature I control. And I got Slippery Bog Bonder. It has flash, hexproof, and when they're ETBs, put a hexproof counter on target creature. Then I can move a number of +1/+1 counters from among creatures I control onto that creature. So that's just a little bit of extra protection for the commander. I don't think people are going to be looking at Rocco and saying get rid of it because it is giving them draw. But, just in case. Life gain deck, so let's just get serious about some life, eh? Rock's Faith Mender. If I'd gain life, I gain twice as much. Beacon of Immortality, I double my life. And Boon Reflection, if I'd gain life, I gain twice that much life. Get Rocks or Boon out and then play the Beacon, and oh my word, how much life have I got? It's ridiculous. So I'm gaining all this life, so let's do something positive with it. Elender's Hierophant. Whenever I gain life, I put a 1/1 counter on it. And when it dies, I create X 1/1 vampire creature tokens with lifelink, where X is its power. That's a pretty good card there, because I also have Lathiel the Bounteous Dawn. Beginning of each end step, if I gain life this turn, distribute up to that many +1/+1 counters among any number of other target creatures. So obviously I'm going to put one on every creature for that inspiring call, and the rest can go on Alenda's Hierophant, and heck, even I could destroy it. I've got plenty of destroy cards. And then I'd create loads of vampires with lifelink. I do have Mondrak, Glory Dominus to multiply tokens, so then I could multiply more tokens and go exponential. It just gets silly. Nykthos Paragon. Apologies. Nykthos Paragon. Next one in, whenever I gain life, I might put that many 1/1 counters on each creature I control. Do this only once per turn. Yeah, gladly. That's a nice card. And Treebeard, Gracious Host. So he just gets taller. ETBs, creates 2 food tokens, has Trample, Ward 2. And whenever I gain life, I put that many +1/+1 counters on Halfling or Tree Folk. So there are some Halflings in the deck, obviously. After all, we're making food, and apparently Halflings seem to like food. And the first 3 Halflings are Sam, Loyal Attendant. Beginning of combat, I create a food token. And the activated abilities of foods are 1 less to activate, which is awesome. Samwise Gamgee. I create a food whenever a non-token creature enters a battlefield, and I can sack 3 foods to return target historic card, which is handy. Is that legendary creatures as well? No, yes, it is, isn't it? Artifacts, legendaries, and sagas. I have no sagas. It doesn't matter. And Rosie Cotton of South Lane. She also is a halfling. And when she ETBs, I create a food token, and whenever I create a token, I put a +1/+1 counter on target creature I control other than Rosie. Once again, Alenda's Hierophant comes into view. Now, I'm thinking of putting this card in, Lizette, Dean of the Root. Whenever I gain life, I may pay 1, and if I do, put a 1/1 counter on each creature I control, and those creatures gain trample until end of turn. I think that's going to work. I'm not sure, because it is dual-sided. It's a dual mode one, but I can cast it on the green side. Let me know in the comments, can I actually cast that, or can I not because it's got a black card on the back? I get very confused with these. Finally, Sierra, Nuka's biggest fan. Whenever 1 or more creatures I control deal combat damage, I put a quest counter on it, and I create a food token. And whenever I sack a food, target creature gets +X, where X is the number of quest counters on Sierra. So Sierra's just a different way of buffing up creatures. I've been talking about tokens and creatures, so I may as well get into this bit as well. Once again, another halfling. Treebeard will work well here. Don't forget, I can also tutor him out with Rocco or the shared summons. Peregrine Took. If 1 or more tokens would be created under my control, those tokens plus an additional are created. I can sack 3 foods and draw a card with that. Mondrak, Glory Dominus. Oh my word. If 1 or more tokens would be created, twice that many are created. That works rather well, and of course I can protect it by sacking 2 artifacts, the food tokens. Primal Vigor. Now this is a global enchantment. Everybody gets advantage out of this. But if 1 or more tokens would be created, twice that many are created. And if 1 or more +1/+1 counters would be put on a creature, twice that many are put on that creature. So, yes, I am helping my opponents, but the chance of them doing a tokens and a +1/+1 deck at the same time as me is quite low. So I feel I will still get a better advantage, doubling my tokens, doubling my +1/+1 counters. And it's a lot cheaper than the other options, the doubling seasons and whatever, cubes, whatever. I don't even know their names because I can't afford them. Bit of recursion here, Eternal Witness, Sun Titan. So Sun Titan can always pull Eternal Witness back out the graveyard, and the Etwit can grab whatever card I want out of that graveyard. Graham O'Brien. Whenever I cast a spell from somewhere other than my hand, remembering I've got a lot of exile triggers, Graham will let me draw a card. Create a food token. Ajani Great-Hearted. I like the Vigilance, and I like the gain 3 life, and I like the put a +1/+1 counter on each creature I control. Seems to work all right. Sovereign Okonek Ahal. What a name. Ward 2. Whenever it attacks, for each creature I control with power greater than that creature's base power, I'll put a number of 1/1 counters on that creature equal to the difference. So basically I'm doubling their counters. Really. That's what it's really kind of saying there. Just kind of roundabout. I get a feeling that's going to be an argument after a couple of glasses of red, but never mind. A little bit of evasion going on. Dust Shell Crawler. ETBs, put a 1-1 counter on a creature, and each creature with a 1-1 counter on it has trample. Tuskguard Captain, each creature with a 1-1 counter on it has trample. Also has Outlast. I can pay 1 green and put a 1-1 counter on himself. Provisions Merchant. When the ETBs create a food, and whenever he attacks, I may sack a food. If I do, attacking creatures get +1/+1 and gain trample until end of turn. Now it's time for some cheese. So, Hedron Detonator. Whenever an artifact's ETB is under my control, this deals 1 damage to target opponent. I can sack 2 and exile a card, and I may play that card this turn. That's going to work fabulously with Primal Vigor, doubling those tokens. It will also work fabulously with the next piece of cheese, Academy Manufactor. Whenever I create a clue, I'm going to create a food or treasure token. That's awesome. And then, of course, I do a Smothering Tithe right there, and now this whole thing's just taking on a life of its own. Especially if Primal Vigor's already out. Oh my word. We're just creating 6 tokens every turn, and things are just looking horrible. Peregrine Took was out. That would now be creating 9 tokens? I haven't even done the maths. Oh, that's all good. That's a fabulous piece of cheese, that. Quintorius Canned. Whenever I cast a spell from exile, which is why there's been so many cards going into exile, the Wild Wasteland and all that, Inspired Tinkering. Whenever I cast a spell from exile, it deals 2 damage to each opponent, and I gain 2 life. So a bit of life gain, bit of pinging, love it. I can also create a red and white spirit. I can discover 4, which isn't going to happen. And I could exile a bunch of cards from my graveyard and cast them that turn using 1 red for each card I exile. So that would once again trigger in and do the 2 damage for casting from exile. Ginny Fay. Good old Ginny Fay. Look at this. So anytime I create one of these tokens, Ginny Fay could actually make it a 2/2 cat creature or a 3/1 green dog creature with vigilance. There's options there early in the game, perhaps. I haven't got all this stuff on board, all this cheese out. Ginny Fay could just be giving me tokens just to chump block. Here's where the fun starts. Jaheira, Friend of the Forest, Inspiring Statuary, and Halcyon, Emerald Arch Druid. So Inspiring Statuary allows me to tap all of the food tokens I'm making to help cast spells. That's awesome. That's just bonus. But here's where things go really crazy, because Jaheira can make all my tokens tap for mana, for green mana. I could tap half my tokens for 1 green mana, and then I could use that 1 green mana with Halcyon, the Emerald Arch Druid, to make the other half of my tokens 4/4 boars and code charge in. So get a load of tokens, tap half of them for the mana, send the other half in. That's why the shared summons is in the deck. It's to get these 2 cards out. It'll go grab these 2 cards, and that is, oh yeah, that's terrifying for anybody. Finally, my last way to win, Mael's Aria. Beginning of my upkeep, put a 1/1 counter on each creature I control. If I control a creature with power 5 or greater, then I gain 10 life. If I control a creature with power 10 or greater, then I win the game if I control a creature with power 20 or greater. Nice piece of cheese. That little piece of cheese there has been just sitting, maturing in my deck, in my library for a long, long time. I did think of that Felidar Sovereign, the one that if you got more than 40 life, you win the game instantly. But it actually would seem like I have some kind of morals because I didn't put it in. I don't know why I didn't. Perhaps I'm just getting nice at my old age. That's sad, isn't it? So that was the deck. Hope you're inspired. Hope you learned something. Hope you're thinking, hey, I'll grab that deck and I'll take it in a different direction. If you could do me a solid, hit the like, hit the subscribe. This deck is now on Moxfield. I'm going to be putting all my decks on Moxfield. And if I was really good with computers, there'd be a link down there, but I'm not. So there's the words here. J_P. Easy as. Go check it out, and I will see you next month. Next month, I'm going to do the 6th Doctor. 4 and Simic, blue-green. Whenever I cast an historic spell, so artifacts, legendaries, sagas, I can copy it and it's not legendary. So it's just doing a lot of Simic stuff. I'm creating copies. Got a lot of cards, Simic cards, that were just sitting in my library doing nothing. Progenitor Mimic, Essex Fractal Bloom, those sorts of things. They're all going to make the tokens do weird stuff, and they're all going to dance through hoops, and it holds its own. It holds its own quite well, actually. I think it has walked away with a win and surprises people every time. Alright, so until then, I will see you next month.